Director Tom Hackney. I am the Director of Personnel and Professional Standards for the Sheriff's Office. I'll talk to you a little bit this afternoon about some of our activity that we have that is going on across the street from the police building. Earlier this year, we had an accidental discharge involving one of our Olympic Arms AR-15 rifles, one of several manufacturers that the Sheriff's Office uses and issues to its officers on the street. That accidental discharge occurred, and the officer who was involved in that claimed that the rifle discharged kind of by itself. We looked into that pretty closely. We have armorers who are on staff, and these are officers who were trained specifically by each manufacturer to work on, repair, and diagnose issues with whatever particular gun we're talking about. As a result of that, we looked into it a little farther. Each one of an accidental discharge that occurs, we do look into the manufacturer of the gun to make sure that there's no mechanical issues that cause the discharge. About the same time as all that's going on, we had an issue at our firing range. This was under controlled circumstances, again, with an Olympic Arms AR-15 rifle. The officer at that time described a difficult trigger pull. The last pull of that trigger resulted in a multiple firing of the gun. They gave that to the range officer at the range at the time. The range officer was actually able to reproduce what the officer had described the first time with the difficult trigger pull and then a multiple burst fire. At that point in time, we looked into it a little closer, and a decision was made at that point in time to replace the trigger assemblies in our Olympic Arms issued AR-15 rifles. This is at a cost to the Sheriff's Office of around $50,000. It's the abundance of caution that led us to do this. This is kind of a normal routine maintenance. These guns are machines. They do have parts and pieces that break. Again, there were things that were found in that trigger assembly that caused us enough concern, again, with the abundance of caution, to make the decision to replace the trigger assemblies. What we're doing today, and again in a day next week, we're doing a systematic recall of these Olympic Arms rifles that are out there in the street. I said before, these are not the only manufacturers that are there. We are not leaving officers on the street unarmed, armed without rifles, or citizens unprotected by officers without rifles. This is a systematic recall. We will replace the trigger assemblies. The trigger assemblies will be in our hands first part of next week. We will immediately then begin replacing the trigger assemblies, reissue the officers their rifles, and things will be back to normal. Again, like I said, this is more of a routine maintenance sort of thing. We have had some discussions with the manufacturer of Olympic Arms, but irrespective of whatever discussions we may have with them, again, the abundance of caution led us to make the decision to follow best practice, replace the trigger assemblies, and not have something to worry about. I don't want the citizens of the city to have anything to be concerned about with these rifles being out there in the street. Their safety, the officer's safety, comes first. I can answer a few questions if you
I'm Wilma Clark with Action News. Quick question would be, when did we find out about this? When was the first incident and the second incident? And I mean, how long did we wait to actually take action and fix the triggers?
We've taken, once a decision was made to replace these triggers, that there were enough red flags there to replace these triggers, we have secured the money through normal city procurements and ordered these trigger assemblies, and this has taken about 2 weeks, maybe even less than a week. So you're talking, this was earlier in this year. Within the last few months, we had the accidental discharge, then we had the issue with the range, and within that period of time, that decision was made.
I guess I'm just looking for a timeline, like when was the first incident, second incident, and when?
I don't have the specific dates, but it has been within the last few months that the first incident came. The normal follow-up and investigative procedure of that accidental discharge gave us rise to look closer during the course of that, looking into it. This other incident occurred that sped up our timeline there, if you will.
That was 2 weeks ago.
That's within the last couple weeks.
Caitlin Ross with First Coast News. Was this part of a bid contract to get these Olympic Arms rifles? And if so, were these the low bidders on that contract?
These Olympic Arms rifles that we have, we've had different orders over the last 10 years of this same manufacturer. We put specific specs out for the rifles that we have. The Olympic Arms repeatedly over the years has met that, and we have purchased them from that same manufacturer over the years, over the last 10 years. To say whether it's a low bid or not, I don't know. I know that irrespective of whatever amount that we spend on them, they meet our specifications as to what we deem to be safe for the citizens and safe for the officers.
And how many total are you replacing?
I'm not going to discuss how many specific guns we have issued or deployed on the streets. To discuss that would kind of put that out there for the safety of the officers. Don't think it's right to discuss that.
Derek Gillum, Times Union.
Yes.
Where was the first accidental discharge? Like, where was it at? Was it inside this car? When did it just fire by itself?
Well, it didn't fire by itself. They were at a scene outside, handing the gun from one officer to another. During the course of that handoff is when it occurred. So this wasn't like it actually went off by itself without anybody touching it. There was officer involvement into moving the gun around. So don't confuse. Just as it was sitting on the table and decided to go off, there was a human factor there.
Well, McLaren with Action News, how soon until they are all fixed?
We hope that within the next 30 days. Again, this is a systematic recall. Over different days, we're taking, preparing, and turning back in. So we hope that over a 30-day period, we'll be able to have every one of these Olympic Arms rifles back in, replaced, and back out on the street.
Is this just a local recall here with JSO, or is this going to be, kind of a national or statewide recall with other, sheriff's offices who also use the rifle?
At this time, we're dealing with us. This is our backyard that we're dealing with. Again, this is an abundance of caution kind of thing with preventive maintenance and abundance of caution, and this is what we're dealing with now. What others may not elect to do, I couldn't speak to.
Okay.
Question. Derek Gillum, Times Union. How many other manufacturers are there, and is this right here your main manufacturer?
Right now we currently buy from one. There are two different manufacturers that we have out on the streets right now, Olympic Arms being one of them. We currently buy from another manufacturer now, so we're not buying from Olympic Arms anymore. But again, over the past 10 years, they have been a repeated supplier for us.
Okay. So you're not using them anymore?
Correct.
One other question. I know you touched on this briefly, but I just wanted to ask again. You said that they're not on the streets. The officers are not unarmed on the streets. What are they using right now?
They're using the other manufacturer of the AR-15 rifles.
What's that manufacturer?
That manufacturer is DPMS. DPMS is the other manufacturer that we use.
Okay. Thanks, Director.
Thank you.